Okay, let's talk about these. This is the part I want to talk. I want to spend about 5 or 8 minutes. Then, like I said, I'm here the rest of the time. How can you enforce the ADA? You see problems. There's going to be a few of you in here that have the personalities that you really want to do things in your community, or you know people that do. But let me tell you, if you think that just going up and talking to the management and saying, you know, the ramp's too steep out front of your restaurant, or there's not a ramp in front of your restaurant, or whatever, and that they're going to fix it for you, they're going to pat you on the head, they're going to give you a $5 coupon for next time you come, although the ramp's still going to be too steep, or there's going to be a curb. And that's what's going to happen. It's all across the country. So you can meet with management, of course, but if you meet with management, write down what you expect. If you tell them that you expect that they would have a survey of their full facilities done within a 30-day period, call them in 29 days. Where's the survey? You have to work with businesses as a business, not as somebody halfway. If you want to enforce the ADA in your community, you have to do it. And let me tell you something, people. The Americans with Disabilities Act is the only law in the land that, you know who the police are for the ADA? No. Close. And yes, you're partially right. That's Department of Justice. Almost. Not really. Us. That's it. You can speed, the police will give you a fine. You can cheat on your taxes, the IRS will get you. You can kill somebody, and the FBI will look for you. Even the Department of Justice will sometimes file a complaint on your behalf, but you have to initiate that call. And they'll only take high-profile cases like Yankee Stadium or whatever. They're not interested in your restaurant in your town or the Walmart that you go to or stuff like that. They're not going to get involved with it. Private attorneys take those cases, and they can be extremely helpful. Writing letters, again, like meeting with management. If you write letters, you put what your expectations are, and you make sure you continue. You can also get attorneys to help you write letters if it's like a small mom and pop shop and you don't really want to pursue litigation or whatever the case may be. Then you might want to write a letter, and if it comes from an attorney's desk, the people will generally move on it, okay? Go ahead. Nobody likes bad press, right? Nobody likes bad press. If you want to get serious, do it. Go ahead. You can file a complaint with DOJ. As we talked about, they typically now will tell you with the budget cuts and everything that are happening that it will be 6 months before they'll look at your complaint, and then it may be another 6 or so before they decide whether they're going to help you with your complaint or just send a mediator down to try to work things out between you and the owner of the hotel, the restaurant, the subway system, whatever it may be. And that mediator may not know any more about the ADA than somebody walking down the street. Okay, and they probably don't. That's Justice's way that they're doing things now. They don't have the money to send inspectors like myself out on the site and actually tell them what has to be done. Okay, next. File a lawsuit with private attorneys. I work with several private attorneys that are crackerjack, on the ball, attorneys that know what they're doing. They will never charge you or anybody you know a dime for anything where you have a problem. They will collect from the defendants if they prevail. I have been to court as an expert probably 5 times in 18 years. We win our cases. We don't have to go to court. We settle. People are caught. Businesses are caught with their pants down around their ankles, and they're stopped. They got to pull their pants back up. Okay? This is what I wanted to tell you people that may shock you about the ADA, and this is the truth. I was on inspection 6 years ago we did several properties. It's a large chain. I won't name who. It was a confidential settlement, but let me just say it's one of the largest retailers in the world, okay? So we had 6 of their big superstores to survey, and when we showed up at the first one, they showed up with all their people that wore suits and ties and all this stuff. They watched me survey for about 45 minutes on the first property, and they said, "We're good, we're leaving." I said, "We've got all the other 5 locations to do in this one." "Yes, you can go, and we'll just have the general manager meet you there. We're going to do whatever you ask. We see you know your stuff." The plaintiff's lawyer that was with me said, "Well, okay, well, this is going to work, and we're not going to have any issues down the road." "No, you send me Mr. Tcherneshoff's report. We'll do whatever you ask." And voluntarily at that time, the regional manager for this large retailer spoke up and said, "I know this seems odd, but, upper level management makes the decisions." Said at the time the ADA passed, we had $2 billion in cash in the bank. And they said we could either spend, we determined that around the country we had about $175 million worth of barriers at all of our centers. And said with that $175 million, we opened up 60 new centers. And said we don't have any problems removing the barriers, but people with disabilities don't ever complain about it. When they do, if they file a suit, we'll pay the legal fees. We'll make things accessible. We don't mind doing it. People like that think that way. Large restaurant chains think that way. They all have corporate counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, it is about money. That's all it is. It's not about civil rights. They don't care about that 20% of the American public has some sort of disability and they may gain market share or whatever. Trust me, I've seen it for 18 years. It's not what they want. If they see, I work with some businesses now, and as a matter of fact, I'm helping to design a resort in South Florida. I'm working with the architects and the contractors, the interior designers, landscape architects, all through the process. The reason they finally brought me on, though, is because there's been so much litigation in South Florida that they didn't want to be sued. The architects and contractors are not taught the ADA in school. You know why? It's not a building code, it's a civil rights law. And it's our right. So if you file an ADA case, do not think you're acting like an ambulance chaser. You're not doing any of that. You are fighting for what is your right and your friend's right that sits next to you, and people that you don't even know yet, and other family members and friends that you're going to have that are going to have disabilities. Okay? So with that, I will say that these suits are very smooth. Typically, if you were to file one of them, what you would do is you would contact me. You'd say, "Kirk, I've got 3 or 4 places I need you to come look at, or I've got some friends in my community." Okay? Let's flip the page. I want to, this is snowstorm of 64 there. Yeah, where do we go from here? Oh, boy. Keep up with that. All right. So, as I said, when you go home, if you're an advocate, you've got my business card, right? You know I can help you. If you want to be part of this change, if you want to be part of the movement, it will cost you how much? Ever. If you see barriers and you want to be a part, if you want to be a letter writer, call me. Let me know what the problems are. Let's help you write letters. If you want to file some suits against larger places that know better, call me. I have attorneys that can represent you that have been doing it for 20 years, and they are excellent at what they do. I will help them survey the properties, and we'll get the barriers removed to the full extent of the law. They will pay the bill. 99.9% of these cases never, ever go to trial. You might get deposed, 1 or 2% of the time, rarely are people ever deposed. If you're deposed, they want to know, A, are you a qualified individual with a disability, or did I dream up my uncle to get on as a plaintiff in a law case? B, did you go there? And C, do you have the intent to return? Those are the 3 prongs of filing a suit. Do you want to go back if they make it accessible? Those are the 3 things. I want to encourage you to go home. Invite me to your communities. I'm going to be here the rest of the weekend. I have to leave tomorrow morning about 10 or 11. I'm going to get a sheet from Robert. I'll email you guys. But in the meantime, I want you to help find me, find Penny today. If you want us to contact you before then and you have issues in your community, let me know. We'll write down your name and number and make sure you're at the top of the list. Now we've got about 15 minutes the way I look at it, and some questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Can I answer your question first about the airport? Airplanes?
No, yeah.
I mean, can I do that?
Please.
Okay, yes. All right. Airlines, I couldn't agree with her more. Shouldn't we be able to drive our chairs right on and just strap in? We should. Airports are covered under the ADA, okay? And everything down the jetway. Once you enter the airline, they're covered by the Air Carrier Access Act, not the ADA. And the Air Carrier Access Act has some teeth to it. It's mainly around people that need oxygen and the fact that you can travel with a personal assistant and they don't have to be involved in lifting you or transferring you, but it doesn't have anything about accessible seating. I'm sorry. The best thing for that is to lobby Congress so we can make the Air Carrier Access Act become stronger like the ADA is. Yes, ma'am. You have another.
The other 2, I got one from that. There was a guy a couple of years ago. United Airlines is notorious. I've read articles. They discriminate against people with cerebral palsy. He could get out of his chair, get leave. He was going to fly from Florida to Chicago, done it many times. All of a sudden they said, you can't fly, your mother has to go with you. If in the event of an emergency, you would be obstructive to the other passengers if we had to evacuate. So you have to travel with someone. And there's another airline that's notorious for discriminating. And it was on ABC News a few months ago. I mean, is this for real? Okay, first question is, did the 1990 ADA law expire and had to be reauthorized? That's why it's a new 2010 law, number 1. And why all these other aren't in, like people not being allowed not to get on airplanes, and the airline seems to be immune to it. I think it's United or and then the other 2 was
Talk to me later, and I'll answer your one about the ADA because I answered the airline question.
yeah.
And other people have some questions. The 1991 ADA did not expire. It simply, we saw working with it for 17 or 18 years, there were some holes, there were some problems, there were some things that were wrong with it. It was really wrong that we weren't able to get into pools. It was really wrong that we couldn't ride amusement rides. A lot of things like that. So we just amped it up, and thank goodness we had a good president that was ready to make it happen, so we did it. This Michigan lady has a question.
Okay, she said she has 3 questions.
Okay.
She said she bought a Nissan car. She had a scooter lift. Most car companies offer a discount. However, Nissan does not offer a $1,000 discount. Is there anything she can do?
It's not covered under the ADA in terms of how much discount they will provide for that. I know what you're talking about, vehicle modification programs like Ford and Chevy do, and Chrysler do the $1,000 renovation. And it is a place of public accommodation. So, for example, if they had car rental service and they refuse to rent you a car, they're violating the ADA. But how much they want to provide in terms of an assistance program, that's not governed by the ADA. Good question. Yes.
Question is, doesn't Section 508 cover web accessibility?
Section 504 would cover web access. 508? Oh. ADA what?
I think it's 508 is disability acceptable. I know because my husband is a representative for the IRS, and he has to make sure everything's for the blind that has to be adaptable with JAWS and the
Okay.
program.
Right.
That all has to be part of 508.
Well, 508 and 504 are part of laws that are part of the Rehabilitation Act that govern federal facilities. So yes, that has been in place more so, but I'll be honest with you, I kind of do the architectural side of this work, and I don't really do, website type accessibility. I don't do a lot of service animal work, although definitely if somebody's been asked to leave a restaurant or whatever with a service animal, we've been involved with that an awful lot. So that may be true that 508, but I know that for public places that are privately owned, that's now covered by the ADA, but Justice has not yet passed down what the exact requirements are going to be. I'm going to guess it's going to parallel this 508. Your third question?
What is the status of paying for parking meters?
Of paying at parking meters? Good question. What we've done in a lot of cities that have been sued about having parking meters that you have to twist or you have to hold your coin and try to put them in there, and a lot of us, most of us can't do it, is we've actually said at the accessible parking spaces, take out the parking meters or make them dummies for program access, because that's what cities have to do is, provide program access. We've never had a city where we were involved with the city government in a suit where they didn't agree to that. It's not a big revenue generator for them anyway. So they've just taken out the parking meters or made them completely, inoperable or inoperable rather at the accessible spaces. Yes, Chris has a question. I'm sorry. Yes, Chris.
Are there any, do the EDA cover any other to those areas?
It does in the terms of policies and procedures. Okay? For example, when I talked about the 3 additional companion seats, then the attitudes, the training has to be done for the person that works at the arena, for example, or works at the stadium that's selling tickets. If they're not doing the right training, which is an attitude change, right, so that they know that when somebody calls in with a disability, they need to be. I just finished working on Neyland Stadium in Knoxville, Tennessee, one of the largest football stadiums in the nation, and Thompson Bowling Arena, their Coliseum. Well, they didn't tell this gentleman named Mike, who has muscular dystrophy, when he called in and told them he wanted accessible seating. They didn't tell him at all where any accessible parking was. They didn't tell him at all that the seats he was getting were going to be completely obstructed by a column so he couldn't even see the concert he went to. Any of those kinds of issues. So yes, a training component. We deal a lot with policies and procedures for that.
Yes, buildings are accessible, but like them are not up to the code.
Say again.
A lot of people say that they are EDE compliant, and they probably are, but as far as they're not as good as they could be.
Yeah. I think, there have been some studies done, and I think it's shown now that it's kind of that the architectural side needs to happen so that it kind of has an effect to bring around the attitude. I'll give you an example. When we checked in here, they had the lowered counter, okay? Now, the lowered counter is used for holding the flowers and the magazines, as you know. Well, Penny started the check-in process. She needed to go to the bathroom. I said, I'll finish the check-in process. So I talked to the lady up front, and once I started, I said, I want to move over to the lowered counter. And she said, the lowered counter? And I said, yes, down at the end. And she said, okay. Well, then she came around the desk to me. That's the perfect example. So I did some training. I did some education. I said, ma'am, I said, come down here with me. And she followed me down. I said, this counter, I said, I appreciate you bringing around everything to me, but this counter is lowered so that I can make transactions with you over a counter while you're at a computer, just like other people are. Well, there's an example where if we didn't have the lowered counter that's required, it'd be real hard to demonstrate that and help with the attitude. Okay, so I think we can kind of go hand in hand. Yes, sir, you've been having your hand up for a while. I'm sorry.
My understanding of the ADA is that it's almost entirely complaint driven. Is that true of other civil rights laws on raising or gender or orientation?
Very, very good. Almost entirely complaint driven. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes, yes. And I will say this about, this is why I was really getting on my bandwagon with you guys, and I mean it. Penny, can you start passing out cards since I know we're going to go to lunch soon? Yes, thank you. Good question. I have said this many times. In 1965 through 1975 or 80, when you had restaurants that said no blacks allowed on the outside or whatever, or black restrooms around on the side of the building or whatever, what do you think that the black population was doing? They were complaining like crazy. They were filing suits. If the disability population was a third as motivated about doing this as the black population, we wouldn't have any barriers in the United States. Right now, we'd be done.
Well, that didn't answer my question.
It didn't?
No. My question was whether the other civil rights act, whether they depend on complaints and are not proactive, or is that unique to the ADA?
I understand. Yeah, I understood your question before, and I'm sorry I didn't answer it as completely. It is not unique to the ADA. No, it is not unique to the ADA. All I can say to answer your question, though, is it seems to me that in the work I've done with the ADA for the years that I've done it, that if it's complaint driven, whether it's and I've talked to other people that do civil rights for people of color, people of different sexual orientations, etc., that kind of thing, that complaint driven cases in all of those seem to get the quickest and more permanent results. Okay, and it's certainly that way in the ADA. I don't work in the other civil rights laws, so I can't tell you what the rate of effectiveness is there, but I know it's been very effective with the Civil Rights Law of 64. Let me get her first, and then I'll come to you.
I just want to clarify, you said complaint-driven. What other kind of cases are there?
Well, complaint-driven meaning filing a case with either a private attorney or DOJ. Yes, ma'am. Okay, very good. Yeah, I understood her. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Yes, sir. I'll come back to you, Sharon.
Great, I remember my question.
Yes, sir. Yep, we need a microphone. Hold on just a second. Can somebody take this gentleman a microphone? We'll get a question going here. Save that question, bud. Penny, Penny,
organization and the accessibility inaccessible stall is not accessible. Should we go to the property management?
Who do you work for? I'm sorry, say again. A disability
I
or
work for a disability organization, and the accessible stall is not accessible. Should we go to the property management?
Absolutely. What I would recommend, and everybody has a different personality. I know people that just file suits and don't go. I know people that would rather go a path of, let's talk with them and see if they'll fix it. Make sure, though, that they get a qualified expert, either myself or somebody else, not just them figure out what they think ought to work, okay? Talk with them, see if that works. If it didn't work talking with them, I'd write a letter. If you want, then contact me, and we could have an attorney write a letter. And then if they don't respond on all of those fronts, if you wanted to push it through litigation, then you've shown that you've made every effort to have them change without going the litigious route. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Couple months ago, my husband and I.
Oh, I skipped you. I'm sorry.
I was out going to a restaurant and rolled in, and very tight, rolled in. First word out of the person's at the receptionist goes, "Oh, we don't have room for you." I went, "Excuse me?" Found a table. He put me in the corner, and then behind me comes four elderly people on canes, four walkers, and they push those people all the way in the back of the restaurant. Well, I got a nice email put in. I said, "How dare you say no to me, and how dare you make elderly people with walkers go out to the other side of the restaurant and then see the seats next to us with families that have children and are able bodies." I said, "How dare you break the law?" I got a phone call the following day. "I apologize. This will never happen again. Would you let me give you a receipt for another meal?" I came back, everything. "Would you like us to move that table? Let me move the chairs, allocate." Everything was, "Are you happy?" Because if you say stand up for your rights, if I didn't do that,
Absolutely.
and he goes, "I promise you, the next time I go to work," this is the manager of the store, of the restaurant, "I promise you, I will have a care for other people with disabilities, one-on-one class before I open up my restaurant. Thank you for pointing this out to me." Because I was so angry, but the poor waiter had no idea. So I just kept my mouth shut because I was going to explode. My husband's like, "Don't explode. Just comment. We can do a nice email, and you can explode during the email. Nice $50 gift certificate. Okay, thank you. Free meal a couple of times." I was
Good for
happy,
you.
but
Good
I
for
had
you.
enough of my rates.
Yeah, absolutely. Good for you. Okay, Sharon, I'm sorry.
Has the new ADA been any competition having personal religious enforcement be accessible to the churches, mosques, or synagogues? Because they were covered under the ADA in the 90s.
Did you say? I think you said to the churches, access to churches. The ADA exempts specifically private clubs and religious organizations. Now, the only caveat to that is I'm going to use two examples. The Augusta National Golf Club, where the Masters Golf Tournament is played every spring. It is a private club. It is not subject to the requirements of the ADA during the year. However, that week that the Masters Golf Tournament's been played, the public's invited to come. So it has to be accessible. So if they make it accessible for that week, then they're not going to tear it down for the rest of the year. Religious organization, Sharon, if you have a community center at the local Baptist church and during the week they rent that community center as part of a lease agreement to KinderCare to provide a daycare service. Well, KinderCare, providing a daycare service that they advertise to the community, is a place of public accommodation now open to the ADA. So that section of the church would be required to be accessible, yes. Okay, okay. It's an argument. We just don't have any teeth with the ADA. Most people that run churches, it's been my experience that most folks that run churches want the congregation to grow. So I'm here. Robert's going to take the mic, but please, let's talk more. He's got the mic right now. I'll be here.
Well, look, I need to be the Grim Reaper. I'm always the bad guy. I'm used to it. Y'all can do it. Take a break. Once you sit down and you have a name tag, they will put your meal in front of your lunch. It's a good lunch, good dessert. Please take advantage of Kirk, because I've taken advantage of his services. I know his law firm, and they do really good work, and they get good results. Thank you, Kirk.
Thanks, Robert. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk more. Absolutely. Come ahead. Come ask me.
Can an airline, if it's covered by the Air Carriers Act,
Right.
can an airline say to someone with cerebral palsy wheelchair, you can't ride? I mean, can
No.
U.S. Air do that?
No.
If they're doing it?
Not at all. You cannot at all.
They say it's under the law, the transportation something.
Not at all. You cannot exclude anybody from wanting to fly in an airline. No. Not at all. How you doing today, David?
Yeah,
How can I help you, sir?
there's a theater.
There's a what? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Go.
They don't have what? I'm having a hard time hearing it just because of the volume here.